Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and welcome back to our Sun Quan Early Years series as we look to conclude this series with part 3, titled Killing Huang. So we ended our last episode as we discussed the various challenges, both external and internal, faced by Sun Quan once he took over for his slain brother Sun Ce. And after 3 years of stabilizing the south, Sun Quan finally has a chance to launch an offensive campaign, and his target would once again be Huang, as Huang was directly involved in Sun Jian's death years ago. Aside from personal grudges, Huang's holdings in Jiangxia makes for a great strategic expansion option for Sun clan that now holds the south, and Huang has always been a belligerent neighbor as well. Following Sun Ce's death in the year 200, Huang had sent his son, Huang She, with a force of a few thousand men to attack the border town of Chaisang, while the Sun clan struggled with the transition to Sun Quan. Luckily, Sun Quan had Xu Sheng defending Chaisang, with just 200 men who fought bravely to repel Huang She's attack. Now, with the transition of power complete for Sun Quan, he was ready to return the favor by attacking Huang in the year 203. Now, the details of this campaign was not recorded, but the result was a key naval victory, as Sun Quan's forces was able to destroy Huang navy, but unfortunately they were not able to have success on land as their siege of Jiangxia would ultimately fail, leading to a retreat. And the naval victory also came at a steep cost, as Sun Quan's vanguard naval general, Ling Cao, who led the charge against Huang's naval forces, took an arrow from Huang's general, Ganning. And this, of course, would be the source of Ganning and Ling Tong's rivalry within the Wu forces in the future, as Ganning will switch sides very soon, and Ling Tong was Ling Cao's son. In addition to the loss of Ling Cao in this naval attack, Sun Quan's cousin, Xu Kun, who had helped him defeat Li Shu just the year prior, would also get killed in this campaign. His two sons, Xu Jiao and Xu Zuo, would go on to continue to serve in the Wu forces, eventually receiving marquis titles and generalships, while Xu Kun's lone daughter, Lady Xu, would also eventually become Sun Quan's wife. Now, it is not only weird that Sun Quan is going to be marrying his cousin's daughter, as Xu Kun's mother was Sun Jian's older sister, or Sun Quan's aunt, but Lady Xu herself was also a widow at this time, as she had already married Lu Shang, who was the grandson of Lu Kang. Now, if you remember from our Sun Ce lore series, Lu Kang had been the administrator of Lujiang Commandery, who defended the commandery from Sun Ce, while Sun Ce was working under Yuan Shu. Lu Kang's defense would eventually fail after holding out the city for 2 years, and not long after, he would also die of old age of 71. And while Sun Ce's siege did cause the death of a lot of Lu clan members, there was strangely never a major grudge with the Lu clan, as they were one of the 4 dominant clans from the Wu commandery, as they continued to support Sun Ce's rise in the south, as many notable members of the clan, like Lu Xun, would come and work for Sun clan. Now, Lu Shang, who had been Lu Kang's grandson and Lu Xun's cousin, did marry Lady Xu, but he unfortunately would die young of illness. So now widowed, Sun Quan would swoop in and marry Lady Xu, despite already having a main wife himself in Lady Xie. Of course, even with the concubine system allowing for multiple marriages, there can only be one main wife. So when Sun Quan took in Lady Xu, he asked Lady Xie to step down and become a concubine instead. And this type of request was akin to a modern-day divorce, and naturally Lady Xie, who had come from a notable clan herself as her father, Xie Jiong, had been a Han imperial court official who retired in the south, simply refused. Add on the fact that her marriage had been in fact set up by Lady Wu, there was really nothing Sun Quan could do. But the stubborn Sun Quan insisted, and his mother couldn't really step in to stop Sun Quan, as Lady Xu, in this case, is also a relative to the family. So Lady Xie was essentially outcasted from the family, as she would go on to live in isolation for the next few years before dying of depression. Fortunately, Sun Quan did feel guilty about her enough to elevate her brother, Xie Cheng, as the administrator of Wuling, as well as her two nephews to key government posts in the future. Now, this is actually extremely important from a historical point of view, as her older brother Xie Cheng would go on to become a renowned historian and write over 100 chapters of the late Book of Han, which is a key historical source that even people today, like myself, used to learn about what happened during this period. But back to our Huangzu campaign, as following the 203 campaign, Sun Quan also suffered quite a bit of losses and had to bide his time for another opportunity. And then in 206, Cao Cao would actually help him out, as after clearing out Yuan Shao's threats in the north, Cao Cao turned his eyes on the south on Liu Biao. And in 206, Zhang Liao would lead an attack on the northern parts of Jiangxia commandery, defended by Huangzu. And after a quick campaign, Zhang Liao was victorious, as two cities in northern Jiangxia would fall into his hands as Huangzu would take heavy losses. Seizing upon this opportunity, Sun Quan would launch his second attack on Huangzu in the following year in 207. And another key thing that changed in between these campaigns is that Ganning had actually switched sides. After the 203 campaign, where Ganning killed Ling Cao, Ganning had expected a promotion from Huangzu. But viewed as an outsider, Huangzu ignored Ganning's accomplishments. And obviously, this created a rift between Huangzu and Ganning. But fortunately, the second in command of the Jiangxia commandery in Sufei tried to repair this relationship, as he would go on to repeatedly try to recommend Ganning for higher positions while also comforting Ganning's emotions. And Sufei's relationship with Ganning went beyond loyalties, as it was Sufei who would end up suggesting to Ganning that if he felt Huangzu would never value him, then perhaps he should consider bringing his talents to the Sun clan. And Ganning would do exactly that, as not long after the 203 campaign, Ganning and roughly 100 of his most trusted fighters would go on to join Sun Quan. And vouched by Zhou Yu and Lu Meng, who were both enamored by Ganning's prowess on the battlefield, Sun Quan accepted Ganning and immediately treated him like a longtime veteran, much like Cheng Pu. And this, of course, brought a lot of displeasure to Ling Tong, who had taken over for his now deceased father. And friction between these two were expected and commonplace, but Sun Quan tried his best to ease their relationship as he comforted Ling Tong the best he could. Meanwhile, Ganning would share all the military intel he knew of Huangzu's defenses as they would plot for their next campaign. So in 207, with Huangzu weakened by Zhang Liao's attack, it felt like the perfect opportunity to destroy him once and for all. But unfortunately, not long after the campaign started, Lady Wu fell gravely ill, and Sun Quan quickly ordered a retreat to tend to his mother, who would luckily survive this illness. Then in 208, with Lady Wu recovered, Sun Quan once again was set out to attack Huangzu, and this time, he even prepared two boxes meant to house the heads of Huangzu and Su Fei. And hearing this, Ganning quickly pleaded with Sun Quan to spare Su Fei, as he promised that he can convince Su Fei to switch sides. And if Su Fei refuses or runs away, then Ganning will willingly cut off his own head as a replacement for Su Fei's, as Su Fei had done so much for him in terms of trying to promote him within Huangzu's ranks before going as far as allowing him to flip to join Sun Quan. Now, Sun Quan would go on to accept Ganning's plea as the final showdown against Huangzu would start. And facing Sun Quan's attack, Huangzu would send out Zhang Shuo as the naval vanguard, while Lieutenants Chen Jiu and Deng Long would help General Su Fei defend the naval choke point at Xiakou, while Huangzu himself would sit back in Jiangxia. And in the early phases of this battle at Xiakou, both Zhang Shuo and Ling Tong, who each served as the vanguard for their respective navies, came out onto the river to scout the other forces. And eager to prove himself, Ling Tong and 10 of his men would swim into the river and creep up on Zhang Shuo's ship, as they would end up climbing aboard in the middle of the night to assassinate Zhang Shuo and take over the boat. Then, following Zhang Shuo's death, Su Fei would take up a defensive position, as he would end up positioning two of his biggest ships at the choke point at Xiakou, while placing strongmen and archers above the cliffs overlooking this entryway to throw rocks and rain arrows down at any approaching enemy ships. At first, Zhou Yu thought Huang Zu's forces must be lacking manpower and supplies after their defeat in the north to Zhangliao, so he sent their best ships trying to break the enemy forces in a direct attack. But after hours of naval combat, it became clear that Huang Zu's forces were well stocked and ready to fight, as Zhou Yu's forces would be forced to retreat after taking heavy losses. Not willing to give up, Zhou Yu would order Ling Tong and Dongxi to ready two ships, as each of them would take only 100 daring troops, all armed with double layers of armor, with the mission to just cut off the connection between the two enemy ships. This was essentially a suicide mission, as they were destined to come under heavy enemy fire and rocks being thrown from the cliffs. But if they can be disruptive enough, then Lu Meng and Ganning would be able to lead the rest of the ships to board the enemy fleet and break this blockade. And of course, Ling Tong and Dongxi would not disappoint, as their ships would successfully cut off the connecting bridge between the two enemy ships that blocked the entryway, as Ganning would eventually be able to board Deng Long's ship during this distraction and kill Deng Long, while Lu Meng's forces would also manage to kill Chen Jiu, as his forces tried to flee. Ultimately, Sun Quan's forces would be able to take Xiakou after heavy losses from both sides, with Zhang Shuo, Deng Long, and Chen Jiu all killed in battle, while Su Fei would be captured alive before being convinced to join Sun Quan by Ganning. And hearing all this, Huang Zu knew all is lost, as Sun Quan's forces now started to siege Jiangxia. Trying to flee back to Liu Biao, Huang Zu attempted to break the siege and escape, but he would end up being cut off and killed by officer Feng Ce, as his head was finally presented to Sun Quan, who would bring it back to his father's grave to inform his fallen father that his death is now avenged. And with this victory, Sun Quan's position in the south is now secured, as his next big test would obviously come at the Battle of Chibi, as he would have to utilize the terrain advantages of the mighty Yangtze River to take on the most powerful warlord in Cao Cao. And since we have already done our Chibi Let's Talk Lore series, our next series coming next week will instead skip to Sun Quan's first two siege attempts at Hefei, as that immediately followed the victory at Chibi. So hopefully you all enjoyed the series, and I will see you all next time. Bye!